Marcus sat at his small kitchen table one late evening, staring at the same numbers he had been running through his calculator all week. His paycheck was gone before the month had even started. Rent, utilities, groceries, and the endless list of bills that seemed to grow faster than his income. He leaned back in his chair and asked himself the question that so many Americans quietly ask: how am I supposed to survive like this? What if I told you that you could start earning money today in the US without a single dollar in your pocket? No credit card, no fancy degree, no hidden fees. Just skills you already have, resources you already own, and opportunities that are sitting right in front of you. That's the promise of today's video. Because here's the truth. Marcus's story isn't unique. It's the story of millions. And yet, when Marcus reached his breaking point, he discovered something powerful. There are legitimate side hustles, 10 of them, in fact, that you can start with absolutely $0 up front. And before you roll your eyes and think, "I've heard this before," let me stop you. These aren't scams. They're not too good to be true internet promises, and they don't require you to quit your job. These are side hustles that real people, people like Marcus, are using right now to change their financial lives. Here's the kicker. The wealthy already understand this secret. They know the value of multiple income streams. They don't wait for one paycheck. They build 5, 6, sometimes 10 different ways money can flow into their lives. That's the mindset shift Marcus had to learn, and it's the one I want you to walk away with by the end of this video. So if you've ever felt trapped, paycheck to paycheck, or wondered if there was a way to earn more without a huge startup cost, this is for you. Stick with me until the very end, because hustle number 10 is the one hardly anyone talks about, and it could be the single most overlooked path to financial freedom in America today. Before we dive in, I need you to do one thing. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel is all about giving you real, practical ways to take control of your money in your life. And as you're watching, I want you to think about Marcus's journey and then ask yourself, which one of these side hustles could I start today? Because here's the challenge I'm giving you. Don't just listen, don't just watch, commit. Commit to picking at least one of these side hustles by the end of this video and taking your first step. That's how Marcus turned his story around, and that's how you can too. Now, let's step into Marcus's shoes and see exactly how his struggle began. Marcus had always been a hard worker. He showed up on time, stayed late when asked, and did everything his manager expected of him. Yet no matter how many hours he put in at his 9 to 5, his paycheck seemed to shrink against the weight of his responsibilities. On paper, Marcus was doing okay. He had a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood, a beat-up car that still ran, and a steady job. But in reality, he was drowning. Rent alone swallowed nearly half of his monthly income. By the time he covered utilities, groceries, gas, and a student loan payment that never seemed to go down, he had nothing left. Some months, he had less than nothing. He remembered one particular morning when his phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. Low balance alert. His checking account had dropped to just $23.74, and payday was still 5 days away. He stared at the number, wondering how he would stretch that to cover both food and gas. He laughed bitterly to himself, because it wasn't funny, but it was almost laughable how quickly money slipped through his fingers. And he wasn't alone. Marcus knew his friends were in the same boat. One buddy had to move back in with his parents at 32. Another was juggling 2 jobs and still using credit cards just to buy groceries. Everywhere he looked, it seemed like everyone was barely keeping their heads above water. The worst part wasn't the bills, it was the hopelessness. Marcus felt trapped in a cycle of working, paying, owing, and repeating. He often lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking himself, is this it? Is this all there is? Work until I'm 65, retire broke, and hope Social Security is still around. Then came the breaking point. One evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with a stack of unopened envelopes. He knew what they were: overdue bills. One from the electric company, another from his credit card. He ripped one open and felt his stomach sink. A late fee slapped on top of the payment he already couldn't afford. The walls felt like they were closing in. He buried his face in his hands and whispered, "Something has to change. I can't keep living like this." That night, Marcus picked up his phone and began scrolling, not through social media, but through forums, articles, and YouTube videos. He typed in words like extra income, earn money from home, and side hustles. He wasn't looking for a miracle. He was just desperate for a lifeline. And that's when he stumbled onto something that would change everything. He didn't know it yet, but the search he started that night would uncover 10 side hustles, legit opportunities, that required $0 up front. It was the moment that shifted his mindset from hopeless to hopeful. Marcus realized one thing clearly. If he wanted his life to change, he couldn't wait for someone to rescue him. He had to find a way to rescue himself. And that's where his discovery begins. Marcus sat hunched over his phone that night, the glow of the screen the only light in the room. His apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator, but inside his mind, a storm was brewing. For years, he had believed that the only way to earn was through his job, punching in, working his shift, and waiting for a paycheck that was never enough. But as he scrolled through page after page, he saw something different. People were talking about side hustles. At first, Marcus dismissed it. He thought it was just another buzzword, another scam people hyped up online. But the deeper he dug, the more he realized that these weren't just empty promises. These were real stories of people, regular people, who started with nothing and built extra income streams that changed their lives. He read about a single mom who picked up tutoring in the evenings and managed to pay off her car. A college student who resold items from his closet and made enough to cover tuition. A man who began walking dogs in his neighborhood and turned it into a full-time business. The common thread hit Marcus like a jolt of electricity. None of them had started with money. They started with time, effort, and whatever skills or resources they already had. That was it. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. He sat back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes, whispering to himself, "If they can do it, why not me?" He realized that the wealthy had been playing this game all along. They didn't just rely on one paycheck. They built multiple streams of income, some big, some small, but together they created security. They had options, and Marcus wanted that. He needed that. Still, doubt crept in. What if I fail? What if I waste my time? What if I'm just not cut out for it? The fears were loud, but the louder voice inside him said, "You've already been struggling. What do you really have to lose?" That night became a turning point. Marcus grabbed a notebook and scribbled down the words, 10 hustles. Start with $0. It wasn't just a list. It was his lifeline, his plan to fight back against the hopelessness that had been weighing him down. And over the next few weeks, Marcus would put each hustle to the test. Some worked better than others. Some were harder than he expected. But every single one taught him something about money, about resilience, and about himself. Now, let's step into Marcus's journey as he begins with the first 2 side hustles. Ideas so simple and so practical that you could start them tonight, right where you are. Marcus stared at the words in his notebook, 10 hustles. Start with $0. The first one he had written down was freelancing. It sounded almost too good to be true. Could he really make money online just by offering skills he already had? At first, he laughed at the idea. "What do I even have to offer?" he muttered. He wasn't a professional designer or a coding genius. But as he dug deeper, he realized freelancing didn't mean being the best in the world at something. It meant solving problems people didn't want to solve themselves. Writing short blog posts, creating simple social media graphics, even doing basic data entry. So Marcus decided to try. He signed up for a freelancing platform, filled out his profile with the little experience he had, and started applying to jobs. The first few days were rough. Rejections piled up. Some clients didn't respond at all. The doubt crept back in. But then, late one evening, an email popped up. "Congratulations, you've been hired." It was a small gig, just proofreading a few pages of text for $20. It wasn't life-changing money, but when Marcus finished the task and saw the payment land in his account, something inside him shifted. For the first time, he realized he could create income outside of his job. He didn't have to wait for payday. He could generate money on his own. That small spark of success pushed him to hustle harder. Over the next few weeks, Marcus picked up more little gigs, writing product descriptions, formatting resumes, even organizing spreadsheets. He wasn't getting rich, But the extra $100, then $200 a month made a difference. It meant gas in his car. It meant groceries without swiping his credit card. And most importantly, it meant possibility. Still, Marcus knew freelancing wasn't the only path. He wanted to test as many hustles as he could. That's when he turned to the second idea on his list, selling unwanted items online. He started in his own apartment. Old clothes he hadn't worn in years, a coffee maker collecting dust, and a box of books from college. He snapped photos, wrote simple descriptions, and listed them online. At first, he felt a little embarrassed. Would anyone really want his old things? But within a week, notifications started rolling in. The first sale was a pair of sneakers. They weren't new, but someone was willing to pay $35 for them. When Marcus handed them over at a local meetup spot and walked away with cash in his hand, he couldn't stop grinning. Soon, more items followed: a winter coat he no longer fit into, a blender he'd used twice, a stack of DVDs. Each sale wasn't huge, but combined, it added up to real money. More importantly, it gave Marcus momentum. He began to see the world differently. Every unused item was potential income. Every forgotten box in his closet was an opportunity. By the end of the month, between freelancing gigs and selling old items, Marcus had made nearly $400. $400 that hadn't come from his paycheck. $400 that gave him breathing room. One night, as he counted the cash from another sale, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: control. For years, his finances had controlled him. But now, for the first time, he was starting to flip the script. He leaned back in his chair, looked at his notebook again, and whispered, 2 down, 8 to go. And with that, Marcus turned his attention to the next 2 hustles, ones that would push him even further out of his comfort zone. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, his notebook open in front of him. 2 side hustles were already crossed off the list: freelancing and selling old items, and he could see the progress. But he wanted more. The next hustle, written in bold letters, was delivery apps. At first, Marcus hesitated. The thought of driving around town delivering food made him nervous. His car was old, the kind of car that rattled when it hit a pothole. But he reminded himself of the mantra he had written at the top of his notebook: start with what you have. And what he had was a working car, a valid driver's license, and a desperate need for more income. So he downloaded a few apps: DoorDash, Uber Eats, Instacart, and waited. Within hours, the first order came through: a burrito and chips just a few miles away. He pulled on a hoodie, climbed into his car, and started driving. The first delivery was awkward. Marcus got lost twice trying to find the customer's apartment. By the time he handed over the food, he was sweating and embarrassed. But when his phone buzzed with a notification, payment received, he felt the same jolt he had felt with his first freelance gig. Money, earned by him, on his terms. He kept at it. Day after day, he spent his evenings making deliveries. Some nights were discouraging: long waits at restaurants, small tips, too much gas wasted. But other nights, the tip surprised him. $20 here, $10 there. Enough to make him realize that while this side hustle wouldn't make him rich, it could provide steady, dependable extra income. One Friday evening, Marcus delivered a large order of pizzas to a family throwing a birthday party. The parents thanked him warmly and handed him a tip that was nearly half the value of the food itself. As he drove away, Marcus smiled. His old car rattled, but in that moment, it felt like a chariot of possibility. But delivery apps weren't his only focus. The next hustle on his list was tutoring. This one made Marcus pause. He wasn't a certified teacher. He didn't have a degree in education. But he remembered how he had always been good with numbers. Back in high school, he'd helped his younger cousin pass algebra when everyone else thought she was going to fail. Maybe he thought he could help others the same way. So he posted a simple ad online: affordable math tutoring, flexible hours. Days went by with no response. Just when he was about to give up, his phone buzzed with a message. A mother was looking for someone to help her son, who was struggling with geometry. Marcus was nervous walking into that first session. His palms sweated as he sat across the table from the boy, who looked at him with the same dread Marcus had once felt toward math. But something clicked. Marcus broke the problem down step by step, explaining it simply the way he wished someone had explained it to him years ago. The boy's eyes lit up when he finally understood. At the end of the session, the mother handed Marcus cash, more than he expected, and thanked him. "You have no idea how much this means to us," she said. Marcus walked out of that house feeling taller, lighter, and prouder than he had in years. He wasn't just earning money, he was making a difference. Tutoring became more than a hustle for Marcus. It gave him confidence. It reminded him that he had value to offer. And the word spread. One client turned into 3, and before long, Marcus was earning steady money each week just by sharing what he already knew. Between delivery apps and tutoring, Marcus was no longer just surviving. He was starting to build. Each dollar wasn't just income. It was proof that he had more power over his life than he had ever realized. Late one night, Marcus looked at his growing list of hustles and crossed off 2 more. He whispered to himself, "For down, 6 to go." And as he closed his notebook, he couldn't help but smile. The next side hustles on his list were bigger, scarier, and more uncertain. But Marcus had tasted progress, and now there was no turning back. Marcus stared at the next words in his notebook: affiliate marketing. The idea seemed mysterious at first. He had heard whispers about people earning passive income online, but to him, it always sounded like a scam. Still, the more he researched, the more he realized it wasn't magic. It was simple. Companies were willing to pay him a commission for promoting their products. He didn't need to own the product. He didn't need a warehouse. He didn't even need money up front. He just needed to connect people to things they were already looking for. It sounded easy, but when Marcus tried, reality hit him hard. He signed up for a free affiliate program, copied his first link, and excitedly shared it on social media. Then he waited and waited. Not a single click, not a single sale. Days turned into weeks. The silence was crushing. Marcus felt foolish. "Maybe this isn't for me," he muttered, ready to scratch it off his list. But then he remembered what he had learned from tutoring. People respond when you provide value. Affiliate marketing wasn't about spamming links. It was about helping people solve problems. So Marcus changed his approach. Instead of blindly posting, he started writing small guides online, top 5 affordable tools for students, best budget fitness gear you can start with at home. Inside those guides, he placed his affiliate links. This time, something incredible happened. One morning, Marcus opened his email to find a notification. "You've earned a commission." It was only $6, but it might as well have been 600. For the first time, Marcus had made money in his sleep. That small win opened a door in his mind. Affiliate marketing wasn't fast money, but it was proof of what was possible when he focused on value instead of shortcuts. But the next hustle on his list, content creation, would push him even further out of his comfort zone. Marcus had always been a quiet guy, not the type to broadcast his life online. The idea of making videos terrified him. Who would watch? Who would care? And what if people laughed? But he also knew he had a story. He had learned things about hustling that could help people just like him. So one afternoon, with shaky hands, Marcus propped up his old smartphone against a stack of books, hit record, and started talking. His voice trembled. His words stumbled. But he pushed through and uploaded his first short video. The views trickled in slowly, 10, 20, 30. Nothing viral. But then, something unexpected happened. Someone left a comment. "Thanks, I really needed this." That one comment lit Marcus up inside. Maybe it wasn't about going viral. Maybe it was about connecting with even one person who needed to hear his story. So he kept creating. Every night after work, instead of sinking into the couch, he recorded another short video. Tips about side hustles, stories from his own experience, even mistakes he made. The growth was painfully slow. Some videos flopped completely. Others gained small traction. And there were nights when Marcus sat staring at his screen, wondering if he was wasting his time. But then came the breakthrough. One morning, Marcus woke up to find one of his videos had crossed 10,000 views overnight. Notifications flooded his phone. Likes, comments, shares. His subscriber count jumped. And with that growth came an opportunity he never thought possible. He could monetize his content. For Marcus, it wasn't just about money. It was about belief. He had faced his fear, put himself out there, and found that his story mattered. And that realization was worth more than any paycheck. Affiliate marketing taught Marcus patience. Content creation taught him courage. Together, they reminded him that sometimes the hardest part isn't learning the hustle. It's believing in yourself long enough to see it work. That night, Marcus crossed off 2 more hustles from his list. 6 down, 4 to go. His notebook was filling with proof that change was possible. And as he looked at the next hustles on his list, Marcus knew he was stepping into a whole new chapter of resourcefulness. Marcus flipped to the next page in his notebook, where 2 simple words were written: virtual assistant. At first, he wasn't sure what it meant. The title sounded corporate, almost intimidating, like something reserved for highly trained professionals. But as he researched, Marcus realized a virtual assistant, or VA, was simply someone who helped businesses and entrepreneurs with tasks they didn't have time for. Answering emails, scheduling appointments, managing social media posts, things Marcus had already done in his day job. That realization gave him courage. He didn't need to be an expert in everything. He just needed to be reliable, organized, and willing to learn. So Marcus set up a free profile online and listed the services he could offer: email management, calendar scheduling, basic social media help. Days later, he received his first inquiry. A small business owner needed help keeping track of her inbox, which had ballooned out of control. Marcus agreed, and within the week, he was sorting messages, flagging the urgent ones, and keeping her digital life in order. The pay wasn't extraordinary at first, but the feeling of trust was priceless. For the first time, Marcus wasn't just completing tasks. He was supporting someone's business, giving them peace of mind. And as the weeks rolled on, he picked up more clients. A podcaster who needed help scheduling interviews. A real estate agent who wanted her listings posted consistently online. Suddenly, Marcus realized something. The skills he had taken for granted were valuable. People were willing to pay for organization, for consistency, for a reliable helping hand. With the confidence of his growing VA work, Marcus turned to the next hustle on his list: renting out items. At first, it sounded ridiculous. He didn't own property to rent. He didn't have expensive equipment lying around. But as he looked around his apartment, he started to see potential in things he had ignored for years. His bike, gathering dust in the corner. His set of power tools, tucked away in a closet. Even his old camera, which he hadn't touched since college. He signed up for platforms that allowed people to rent items locally. Hesitant, he listed his bike first. Within days, someone reached out. They wanted it for a weekend trip. Marcus was stunned. Instead of sitting and used, his bike was now bringing in money. Encouraged, he listed his tools next. Soon enough, a neighbor rented them for a small home project. Then came the camera, borrowed by an amateur photographer looking practice. Each rental was small, but they added up quickly. The most surprising moment came when Marcus rented out his spare parking space. He had never thought much of the empty spot outside his building, but to a commuter in the city, it was gold. That single rental brought him more passive income than he had expected. One evening, Marcus sat in his living room, flipping through the envelopes of cash he had earned. He looked at the bike leaning by the door, the tools tucked away, and thought, all this time I thought I had nothing, but I've been sitting on opportunities the whole time. Virtual assistant work had taught Marcus that even everyday skills were valuable. Renting out his items had shown him that even ordinary possessions could be turned into income. It wasn't about luck, it was about perspective. That night, he opened his notebook and carefully crossed off hustles 7 and 8. 8 down, 2 to go. His journey wasn't over yet. In fact, the final hustles would test him in ways he never imagined and reveal just how far he'd come from that man who once sat at his kitchen table with overdue bills and no plan. Marcus had never thought of himself as an artist. In school, his sketches were crooked, and whenever he tried painting, his younger sister would laugh and say his stick figures looked confused. But one night, after scrolling through side hustle forums, he stumbled on something that didn't require him to be Picasso: print on demand. The concept was simple. You upload designs online, and when someone orders a shirt, mug, or hoodie, the company prints and ships it for you. No inventory, no upfront costs, just creativity. Marcus sat at his desk, staring at his laptop screen. What could I even design? He whispered to himself. The thought of competing with millions of talented graphic designers intimidated him. But then he remembered something. People don't always buy art because it's perfect. They buy it because it connects to them. So instead of focusing on art, Marcus focused on ideas. He opened Canva, the free design tool, and typed a phrase he had once told his friend during their tough job hunting days. Keep hustling, even when nobody's watching. He played with fonts, added a bold background, and slapped it onto a mock-up of a black hoodie. When he hit publish on his online store, he felt a mix of excitement and embarrassment. No one's gonna buy this, he muttered, shutting his laptop. But 3 days later, an email popped up on his phone. Congratulations, you made your first sale. His eyes widened. Someone out there, a complete stranger, had seen his design and thought it was worth wearing. That tiny notification hit him harder than any paycheck he'd earned from his regular job. It wasn't about the $5 profit. It was about the fact that his creativity had value. Marcus got hooked. He spent nights brainstorming catchy motivational phrases, inside jokes for side hustlers, and quirky designs for dog lovers. Some flopped, 0 sales, but a few began to pick up traction. Orders trickled in, a mug here, a hoodie there. The moment that sealed it for him came when he saw a photo in a Facebook group. A young college student had uploaded a selfie wearing one of Marcus' hoodies, captioned, "This shirt keeps me motivated during my finals grind. Love it." Marcus stared at the screen, stunned. He didn't know this person. He had never spoken to them. Yet his idea, born out of a late-night experiment, had traveled across the internet and inspired someone else. It wasn't thousands of dollars yet, but it was proof of concept. Proof that creativity, no matter how small, could be turned into income. Proof that someone like him, who once thought he had nothing to offer, could create something people valued. And with that realization, Marcus leaned back in his chair and whispered, "Maybe I've been underestimating myself all along." Marcus had spent weeks dipping his hands into different side hustles. Some worked, some barely moved the needle, but each one taught him something powerful. By now, he wasn't just a man scrambling for extra income. He was someone who saw opportunities where others only saw obstacles. Yet there was still one more hustle he had read about but never fully explored. And it was about to surprise him more than any of the others. It was called freelancing. At first, Marcus shrugged it off. Who would pay him for skills he thought were just ordinary? But one late night, after scrolling through endless online job boards, he realized something. People were hiring for skills he had been using every day without realizing their worth. Writing, customer support, even managing emails. The very things he had done at his previous job were now in demand by business owners all over the world. Nervously, Marcus created a simple profile on a freelancing platform. He didn't overthink it. He just put himself out there. Hours later, he received his first inquiry, a small business owner looking for someone to manage emails for a week. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't big money, but it was a start. Marcus poured himself into that task, replying promptly, staying organized, and treating the client's business as if it were his own. By the end of the week, the client sent him a message that nearly made him tear up. "You've made my life so much easier. Thank you. I'd like to keep you on long term." That one gig turned into another, and then another. Soon, Marcus wasn't just experimenting with hustles. He had built a steady flow of income from something he once underestimated, his own skills. But here's where the breakthrough came. One evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with a notebook, reviewing his past months. The $20 survey here, the $50 delivery job there, the tutoring sessions, the affiliate sales, the shirts sold through print on demand. Each side hustle had given him more than just cash. It had given him perspective. He realized he didn't have to rely on just one income stream. He could stack them, layer them, and let them build together like bricks in a wall. That night, Marcus drew a circle on his notebook and wrote at the top, "Freedom Plan." He listed all 10 side hustles he had tried, and under each one, he wrote what he had learned. Some were slow, some were fast, but together they created something incredible. Options. And for the first time in years, Marcus felt a sense of control over his life. Not because he was rich overnight, but because he finally understood the game. Wealth wasn't about luck. It wasn't about waiting for a miracle. It was about showing up, trying, failing, learning, and stacking small wins until they became big ones. As he closed the notebook, Marcus looked up at the quiet apartment around him. The bills were still there. The future was still uncertain. But now he wasn't scared. He had built a foundation that no one could take from him, his resourcefulness. And with that, Marcus whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." The morning sun streamed through the blinds as Marcus sat at his desk, sipping coffee from the same chipped mug he once used during his most uncertain days. Only now, things felt different. His notebook, once filled with frantic calculations and desperation, was now organized with goals, income streams, and plans for the future. He leaned back in his chair and thought about the past year. What started as a simple search for survival had transformed him into something else entirely. Resourceful, resilient, and confident. He had taken on side hustles he once thought were out of reach. Some worked better than others. Some taught him patience. Others reminded him that money could come from the most unexpected places if you were willing to try. Marcus no longer felt like he was drowning in bills. He wasn't waiting for a lucky break or depending on one paycheck to define his life. Instead, he had built a toolkit of skills and hustles that could adapt to any storm. The financial struggle had turned into financial freedom. Not overnight, not without setbacks, but through persistence and creativity. And that's when he realized something even bigger. It wasn't just about the money. It was about choice. He now had the choice to work on projects that excited him, the choice to walk away from toxic situations, the choice to plan for his family's future without fear. Marcus looked out the window and smiled. The same city that once felt heavy with worry now looked alive with opportunity. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building. And here's where his story connects to you. If you've been listening and thinking, "That could be me," you're right. Marcus' story isn't unique. It's the story of anyone who decides to stop waiting for the perfect moment and starts with what they already have: time, skills, and determination. So let me ask you, what's your excuse? If Marcus could do it with nothing but a notebook, a secondhand laptop, and sheer persistence, what's stopping you from trying? Your breakthrough won't come from waiting. It'll come from action. It can start today. Before you click away, I want you to take one small step. Pick just one side hustle Marcus explored. Write it down, research it tonight, and commit to testing it this week. Not all will stick, but one might just change your life the way it changed his. And if this story sparked something in you, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because every week we share more powerful journeys, strategies, and real-life stories that can help you reshape your financial future. Also, hit the like button to let us know this message resonated, and drop a comment below telling us which side hustle you're ready to try. Remember, wealth isn't just for the lucky. It's for the resourceful, the persistent, and the ones willing to begin. Your journey starts now. The only question is, will you take the first step?